All right, it's Tuesday night in East Lansing, Michigan. Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. Welcome in. Pull up a beverage. We're going to talk Michigan State basketball, some football, talk about Michigan State's terrible performance in Madison, Wisconsin on Saturday. But Michigan State basketball media day was today over at the Breslin Center. I was over there for a while, just got back here, ready to go. Spartan Mag Live. Usually Monday night is when we do this. Give me a thumbs up if the audio sounds okay. Hopefully not as distorted as last time. We'll be talking about some of the things that Tom Izzo said today over at Media Day. Rob South, thanks for the indication again. We appreciate that. I got to call it up here real quickly to get my end of it working. We're going to go right to it, talk about what Tom Izzo said. Really exciting today to be over at Breslin Center to watch Tom Izzo talk about the 2019-2020 Michigan State Spartans, likely to be ranked either number 1 or number 2 in the preseason rankings, AP or coaches. Michigan State coming off a Final Four. There's no more respected coach in the country except for Coach K, I would imagine, than Tom Izzo. Some of you will disagree with me with that and say Izzo's the man. I know you're talking about that, but Krzyzewski is Krzyzewski. He's a living legend, Olympic gold medal, all those things. But Izzo is doing some great things, has a great team coming back. You know, some of the things that I found interesting today, and I talked about this with Paul Konendijk on the VCast over at SpartanMag.com. You can check that out over there right now if you're a Spartan Mag member. Izzo said that Gabe Brown is among his top gym rats. Now, he said Aaron Henry is one of the all-time gym rats also. And Konendijk made a good point that every year Izzo compares somebody as being one of the all-time gym rats. Valentine was in that category for sure. But he compared Gabe Brown to Sean Respert in terms of how much time he's spending in the gym. Gabe Brown apparently last week put up 2,600 shots on his own. Sometimes they'll have a manager working with them, but they've got an apparatus that counts shots, made percentages, missed percentages, and sends rebounds back. So they are able to gauge that, how many shots they're taking and that type of thing. And Gabe Brown shooting a ton. And Izzo said in practice recently, Gabe Brown was 13 out of 16. I think he means from three-point range. Now, don't expect Gabe Brown to be shooting like that during the season. But Gabe Brown is bigger, stronger, put a lot of good time in the weight room, and putting time in on his game too. Excitable guy, likable guy. You know, Marcus Bingham was talking about, and Aaron Henry was talking today about all the energy that Gabe Brown brings. He's just a fun guy to be around. You see him on TV, he looks like a fun guy, energetic, effervescent, athletic. But Gabe Brown, all that stuff does not get on his teammates' nerves. They love having him around, putting in the work. That was interesting today, Gabe Brown getting all that attention in terms of the time he's putting in. Also, I found interesting that Izzo said that they are not talking a lot about national title with this team just yet. And I think that's smart. And he mentions not doing it as much as some other teams. And I'm thinking in my head as he's saying this, that's a mistake that the 2016 team made. And then he went ahead and mentioned the 2016 team. From the time the 2016 team, when Denzel Valentine was a senior, Bryn Forbes was a senior, they went to the Final Four in 2015, beating Louisville in the Carrier Dome in Syracuse, advancing to the Final Four in Indianapolis, I think it was that year. They lost to Duke, and from that point forward, everything was about getting back and winning the national title the next year. As soon as April 10th hit, all year it was national title, national title, national title. And that's kind of the way it should be, but I think it kind of hurt that team that year. That's all they thought about. That's all they talked about. And then it's almost like they played the season just to get to March. And once they got to March, you saw them do some things that they had not done all year. And on senior day, just before that, Valentine was kind of, I'm going to say it, he was kind of backed into making a prediction that they were going to win the national title, because Mateen Cleaves had done that in 2000, taken the microphone and told everyone they're going to win the national title. That was during a rally after Michigan State won the regular season Big Ten championship, and he just kind of promised it. That was back before Twitter and all those things, so what Cleaves said remained in-house largely. Valentine didn't get to take the microphone that night at senior night, and he was asked if he would have had the microphone if he would predict a national championship, and he thought about it and thought about it. This is in the locker room after their senior day game in 2016, and he said, "Yeah, okay, I'll go ahead and predict a national championship. I don't know if he said guarantee, but he said we're going to win the national title. He wasn't planning to say that, but I think he didn't want to shy away from what Cleves had said, so he said it. And a few minutes later, it was being talked about, and his father, Carlton Valentine, was in the locker room too, and I kind of mentioned to him, and Carlton was like, oh man. He wasn't going to make a big deal about it because what was said, but I don't know what it's like to be an athlete at that level. Carlton does, and he knew that that was kind of some extra mental, maybe pressure in the subconscious. I don't know. But Carlton right away was like, oh, he didn't like it that much. That's what happened. They get out there against Middle Tennessee State, and you see players doing things they had not done all year. There was one time when, on a transition situation when they committed a turnover. I mean, when a transition is happening, Michigan State always gets the ball to the point guard, middle of the floor, and they get going. For some reason, it might have been Forbes took it and sent an errant outlet pass. Turnovers are going to happen or whatever, but this was not within the construct of Michigan State's fast break. It was indicative of them stepping outside of what they normally do, went haywire. Of course, Middle Tennessee State was hot at the beginning. Even Izzo going through all the power forwards that day and not finding one to guard the one dude that we said in SpartanMag.com the night before was going to test Michigan State's ability to guard a power forward. That's something that they were searching for all year. There were not a lot of scoring stretch fours in the Big Ten that season to test Michigan State in that area. I thought that Deontay Davis had done enough through the course of the year to become that guy. But we didn't know for sure. And then that game, they had a guy that could test that. And Michigan State was pretty quick on who they rotated. They tried Wallerman. They tried Marvin Clark. Tried Kenny Goins. Goins was hurt, but ran into other problems that day. And I still think among those problems was the year-long national championship or bust, because they just kind of coasted along, worked hard at it, but then boom, when they got to the NCAA tournament, first round, anxiety. I think Izzo's trying to prevent that a little bit this year, and that's why I think he mentioned that today, and I'm sure that he may have had some talks with Winston along those lines about let's just get better every day, every week, every game, and March will get here at some point. Don't try to win the national title right now. Just get your work in. So I thought that was kind of interesting also. Go ahead and post your questions over here on the chat area of the YouTube channel, and I will field some of those. We will have a good time with it. Appreciate everybody chiming in, and I hope everybody is getting ready to have a good festive Halloween season coming up real soon. It's going to be fun. Someone once told me I should go as Joe Paterno for Halloween. I didn't appreciate that very much. I'm joking. It's all right. Rob South, it's always good to have him here. He's here first. Old Tuck is not tardy today. That's good. I'll get to your questions in a second. I'll stick with the basketball question. These were posted on the Final Forum message board by SpartanMag.com members, also known as subscribers. The Final Forum is a great basketball message board focusing on Michigan State basketball. I invited members to post some questions. Let's get to them. A guy by the name of Spartan Pro, he's writing from Warwick, New York via Houghton Lake, Michigan, says, do you believe that the ship has officially sailed with Jalen Terry, or is this still an opportunity to win that, or is there still an opportunity to win that commitment back? I have to increase the point size here because I can't see very good these days. Jalen Terry, of course, the highly ranked point guard out of Flint Beecher, ranked number 48 in the country by Rivals.com. I think that ranking might be a little too low. I think he's sensational. 5'11", 155, quickness, athletic ability, shooting ability, dynamic point guard, prospect. Keith Appling plus, I'd say. Had been committed to Michigan State since last April and announced a couple of days ago, maybe one day ago on Monday, that he is decommitting. Announced that on Twitter. His father also said that. So, big surprise. It's my understanding that was a big surprise for the Michigan State coaches. I'm going to try to verify that soon. I've got another phone call that I'm expecting to get around 10 o'clock tonight for further insight into this situation. Unfortunate situation. Big-time guard. A lot of people wondering, did the A.J. Hogard commitment have something to do with this? You have to look at the timing of it and have to assume that that is part of it. A.J. Hogard comes in as a combo guard, but they talk to Hogard a lot about being a point guard. So if Jalen Terry, if people around him were trying to talk him into possibly reconsidering and taking this all the way to March rather than signing in November, if they were talking about it and he was considering it, is there a chance that they said, hey, if the Hogard thing happens, that's the time to decommit? And then when it did happen, did that get the foot in the door for people to pry him away from Michigan State? Because there are people trying to pry some of these commitments away from Michigan State. There just are. You know the climate. You know how basketball recruiting goes. There are different sorts of agendas out there. I'm not sure if that's part of this. A combination of that and the Hogard thing, I'm looking into it. Has it officially sailed? Well, nothing's official till someone signs. So I will backtrack on one thing. Last night on the Final Forum message board, I mentioned that I said that usually when these recruitments go awry and go away from Michigan State, they don't come back. Think about Eric Devendorf, Wilson Chandler, Romeo Weems. When they go one way, it's hard to reel them back in. However, I'm reminded that Rocket Watts had some cold feet around this time last year. They thought Rocket Watts was going to sign with them on signing day in November. The signature didn't come in. Then they thought it would be the next day. Then they thought it would be by the end of the week. And they thought it would be by the end of the early signing period. Early signing period came and went, no signature from Rocket Watts. And I was thinking back then, man, they're not going to get him for whatever reason. But somehow, some way, Michigan State was able to reel that one back in. If you look at that most recent trend with Rocket Watts and whatever Michigan State said and was able to do to regain him, that's a positive, that maybe there is a chance. Talking around a little bit today over at Media Day, Michigan State, from what I understand, feels they're still in it and they're still going to keep working at it, but it does not look ideal. I would say less than 45% chance that they get him back, but they're going to keep working at it. They want him. In the meantime, I'll try to find out what they're going to be looking at for other prospects. And like I said, I expect later tonight around 10 o'clock to get a phone call to get a little more information on this. All right, question number 2 from Ward 44, posting from Michigan State University. I assume Ward 44 is a student over at Michigan State. If so, great. It's good to have you here. Study hard and be smart, okay? Don't get hurt. Have a good time. Ward 44 says, don't get hurt. I don't know what that means. But anyway, who do you think plays more this year? Kyle Arnes or Gabe Brown? Seems like Izzo loves both of them. You're right. Izzo does love both of them. Last year, Kyle Arnes averaged 18 minutes a game before he went down with the injury. He went down with a couple of injuries, right? And then came back and then went down with that serious, gruesome, emotional injury. Not so gruesome against Michigan in the Big Ten Tournament Championship. Not so graphically gruesome, but emotional because it looked serious. And I spoke with Kyle Arnes today, and he said that when that happened, while he was on the court, it was going through his mind, I'm done. This is it. I'm not doing this anymore. This is it. I feel bad. It's my final college basketball moment. This sucks. That's what he thought. The injury did not turn out to be as bad as they thought. I mean, if the season had gone another month, maybe he could have scraped it back onto the court. But instead, of course, shut it down in April and May. And he said around the month of May, he regained the bug of wanting to come back. Of course, he was married this offseason also. And how's he doing in practice? I watched him a little bit. He's shooting well. His vertical is not quite as good as it used to be. His 2-leg jump is okay. His 1-leg jump off of that one, not what it used to be. And he says it's not going to come back the way it used to be. But lateral movement, defense, knowledge of the game, important factors that he will provide basketball this year. That's valuable. Izzo will lean on that. Gabe Brown averaged 8 minutes a game last year, came on strong later in the year. Of course, after Langford went down and Arnes went down, Brown had to play more, did pretty well, had a big game against LSU. So he averaged 8 minutes a game, but in the tournament might have been closer to 12 or 13. I should have double-checked that. So, who plays more? Good question. They provide different things. Gabe Brown's been shooting well, really good. Added a lot of bulk. They love his energy. They love what Kyle Arnes can do. Who plays more? Let me go through the minutes here. You get 200 minutes a game. And I was scratching this down a little bit. Cassius Winston last year averaged about 36. I think that might be down around 34. In a big game, maybe they play him 36. But through the course of the season, the marathon nature of the season, they don't want him going more than 33 minutes a game. They want him to be more like it was in the Cleves era. Go in, sit twice a half. 3 minutes each half, 34 minutes a game. Maybe a little more. Maybe Foster Lawyer can play a little backup point guard. Rocket Watts, backup point guard. That's going to be an interesting competition. Lawyer is stronger. Can he play some defense? It's going to be really interesting. There's a lot of players and only 200 minutes. Let's go through them. Aaron Henry, I think he's going to play about 28 minutes a game. Tillman played 24 minutes last year. I think 30 minutes this year. Might be wrong. Langford, last year 28 minutes a game before he was injured. I don't know how he's going to come along on that ankle. They're coming back slowly. He won't be playing 28 minutes a game from the jump. They'll start him at like 15, 18 minutes, I'm guessing. But eventually, when you get to March or like late February, Big Ten games, maybe Langford's up to 23 minutes. I don't know if he's playing 28 like he did last year. 23. All right, 34, 28, 30, and 23 from those four players. Winston, Henry, Tillman, Langford. That's a total of 115 minutes. You have 200 minutes for the whole game. That leaves 85 minutes. I've not mentioned a power forward per se. I know that Tillman can play some power forward, but someone's going to play 40 minutes of power forward. Just off the top of my head, let's say Bingham plays 15, Kithier plays 15, Malik Hall 10. That's 40 minutes. So the 85 is down to 45. You've got 45 minutes left now. So Winston, Henry, Tillman, Langford, I told you those minutes. Just for conversation's sake, Bingham 15, Kithier 15, Hall 10. So you got 45 minutes left. And you've got Rocket Watts, Arns, and Gabe Brown. 45 minutes left. You could divide that up 15, 15, 15. Gabe Brown 15, Arns 15, Watts 15. That's no room for Foster Lawyer. Maybe Watts plays a little bit of the two. Cash can play a little bit of the two. Lawyer can maybe 2 minutes a half at point. I'm not sure. But you can see with these players giving Malik Hall 10 minutes a game, he could play himself into more minutes than that by the end of the season. I'm not sure. I've got no minutes for Marble in there. There's a lot of players, not many minutes. The preseason is going to be really interesting in terms of seeing how all that gets jockeyed around. So who plays more? Arns or the other guy? Gabe Brown. Who plays more? I think Gabe Brown. I think Gabe Brown gets more as we go. Gabe Brown, I think, with the things I'm hearing about him, it seems like he's going to play more than 15 minutes a game, doesn't it? Arns is capable of playing more than 15. And Arns is also a guy that would be good with only playing 15 so that others can play more. He just wants to be part of a team. He wants to make a run at something big this year. It's his last year of basketball. He's going to retire after this year. It's almost like Isaiah Dahlman. I mean, he's better than Isaiah Dahlman, but Dahlman was a guy when he was a junior and Darrell Summers was coming in. Whether he liked it or not, Darrell was going to get Isaiah Dahlman's minutes. In this case, it's not whether you like it or not, Kyle Arns. Kyle Arns, being a fifth-year senior, having gone through a lot of injuries, might want to reduce his wear and tear, might be willing to. It's a lot easier to call Kyle Arns into the office and say, look, you're doing a great job. You don't flat out tell him you're playing 12 or 13 minutes a game, but you smooth it over that way. Let's go to the questions here. Old Tuck out of Austin, Texas. A lot of focus on the wide receiver position. How do we measure up at tight end? Do we have any Kurt Prinz, Reese Puffer type of guys, or Josh Kerr, Orchard View type tight ends on the roster? This is Old Tuck. It's his shtick. He brings up guys from the early 30s. Josh Kerr, I thought, was in line to possibly be an NFL tight end in the mid-90s, late 90s. I think he might have signed with Perlis in 94, and Saban retained him. He was having a good season. Injured his knee prior to the Aloha Bowl practice, I think it was. And I don't know if he ever played again. Any of those type of tight ends? I don't know. I mean, Noah Davis got a little bit of time last weekend. Matt Seibert's been a good story. Although, that 3rd and 1 stoppage in the second quarter, there were so many stoppages last week in Madison. And each one of those, just pitiful offense for a lot of reasons. One of them, the 3rd and 1 stoppage, came right through Matt Seibert's gap against 56. Bond, who's the most underrated player in the Big Ten. Fast, quick. I told you about him last weekend. Fast, quick, strong, long arms, turns the corner. He got the pick six against Lewerke. He penetrated. It was inside zone, and Seibert's trying to reach this way to him, reach block, didn't get to him, just outquicked him. Tackle for loss on Elijah Collins on a 3rd and 1, and the beat goes on. I think that might have been another 3 and out. I'm not sure. I looked at that again, and Seibert is off the line of scrimmage like an H-back. I'm thinking, why didn't they have him up on the line of scrimmage? Even if Darryl Stewart is up on the line of scrimmage, go unbalanced there. Michigan State's never thrown the ball on 3rd and short, so Seibert is covered up anyway. Go unbalanced, then you've got a chance to reach block 56, and Collins has a chance to run with the ball. And might have a chance to pick that up. I'm not sure. Let's move on here. We got John G checking in from Mason, Michigan. Thanks, John. Old Talk talking about Bob Organ out of Ludington, Ty Halleck out of Greenville, Seaway Conference, big heavy tight ends. Dwayne Young was slippery too. Dwayne Young was not slippery. What are you talking about? Come on, Old Tuck. You can't come in here talking about Dwayne Young being slippery. He was a lot of things. He wasn't slippery. Come on, Old Tuck. You're better than that. All right. Bob Organ was very difficult to tackle. He was the most difficult tight end to tackle I've ever seen at Michigan State. Some of you might go all the way back to Billy Joe Dupree and disagree with that. I don't remember when Billy Joe played for Michigan State, but Oregon used to take 6 or 7 or 9 guys to get him to the ground. It was very entertaining. Halleck played some tight end, played some fullback, played some middle linebacker for Michigan State. Seaway Conference, Greenville, the Greenville Yellow Jackets. Old Tuck, you didn't think I knew that, did you? Greenville Yellow Jackets. Greenville. Green, Yellow Jackets, and their colors, of course, were purple. The Seaway Conference. You had Muskegon Heights was in the Seaway for a little bit. Dude by the name of C.Q. Moody back in the day. Yeah, Ty Halleck from Greenville, Seaway Conference. Who else was in the Seaway Conference? See, you're testing me, right, Old Tuck? You're seeing Seaway Conference, Greenville. Belding was not in that conference. Belding was in one of the OK Gold, one of those OK conferences. All right, so anyway, moving on. Halleck switched to Mike Landry. Okay, you caught your mistake on that. Not a mistake, but yeah, he moved to middle linebacker later in his career. You're right about that. Halleck played fullback as a true freshman, made his debut, I think, against Rutgers when Michigan State played in the Meadowlands. Rob South asks, can we expect more transfers? With this new rule, I feel like college football as we knew it is over. You're right. It's never going to be the same. Not that it's better or worse, but these mid-season transfer portal situations are intriguing. He says there will be no depth on these teams eventually. That's a good point. I mean, with teams leaving right now, it's the depth players that are leaving. If you get a rash of injuries, walk-ons get on notice, right? All right, Sparty7779 from Los Angeles. How much of a difference would getting Hauser cleared to play make on this year's team? Boy, we just went over the minutes. You had Hauser in there? C.Q. Moody. Yeah, Old Tuck. Remember that guy from Muskegon Heights? That would have been 1991, 92. And C.Q. Moody was a big timer. Colorado was recruiting him. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if it was, I don't know what happened, but C.Q. Moody, I don't think he ever did anything of note at the next level. Let's see. But, I mean, we just went through the minutes, and there's not much time for Malik Hall and Marble and these guys. You put Hauser in there, and, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where the minutes come from at that point. Does it put them over the top? Hauser, watching him in practice, I've heard that there were some times when he was excellent in practice. Izzo said today that he's the second or third best shooter on the team. Bring him in. Izzo today compared him to an A.J. Granger type, but he's trickier with the ball. I mean, Granger was a shooter and never, ever, ever dribbled and was suspect as a post defender, but was an integral part of beating Iowa State to get to the Final Four and winning the national championship. He didn't have a great game against Florida. Haslam had his way with him in the low post, but Granger is a Spartan hero for all time, of course. Hauser, Izzo loves to have that stretch four shooter. Everybody likes to have a stretch four, but it's very important in the Michigan State system. Hauser could give him that. You know, watching Hauser, there's some times when I saw him in practice, the first practice like 2 weeks ago, there were some times when he would like get it and try to do his own thing. And I was like, well, you can't do that. Not unless you're, Miles Bridges. There's ways he has to learn his skill set within the operation. We'll see how that goes, if he's cleared. And whether or not he's cleared, that question was posed over here on the Final Forum, and I might as well get to that now. Excuse me. Hayden V8 out of Grand Rapids. Excuse me. He says, Izzo said we should hear from the NCAA this week on the Hauser ruling. What is your gut feeling right now? What's my gut feeling? Well, going back a month ago when I threw that magenta out, I was like 80% because that's what I was hearing. And then I backed off of that. Frankly, Michigan State was not very optimistic about it. And I talked to Izzo about it a little bit. And he's like, yeah, he wasn't so sure. Then Izzo started saying it was not looking good. And that's what was reported. Withdrew the magenta. Now today he said, well, we're going to hear probably this week. And the NCAA has given some rulings on 6 or 7 guys recently. And there's been 3 or 4 positives and 3 or 4 negatives. The rhyme and reason for those, I don't know. I don't know those cases. I don't know how Hauser's case compared to those. I do know that Michigan State felt optimistic about it a month ago. That's why I threw that out there. And then it was reeled back. And Izzo said a couple of weeks ago, not looking good, not looking good. He told everybody that, and we all reported that. How does he know it's not looking good? Or did he just want us to report that it wasn't looking good? I'm not sure. Not sure. But they were talking about it today like it was 50-50 maybe, 40-60 against it maybe, because they're leaving it open-ended as to whether he's part of the playing group. And Izzo talked about what he could give them and didn't, if Izzo really didn't think they were getting him, he wouldn't entertain those questions. He wouldn't even talk about what Hauser would give them. Or maybe Izzo's trying to go the other way, talk about having his hopes up, and he is Tom Izzo, and he did come off squeaky clean in this FBI thing that's got Arizona and Kansas in trouble and LSU. And the NCAA likes it when they've got people to put on a pedestal to say, that's one of our guys, that's the way it's done. When the FBI clears you, that's pretty good. So Izzo's standing with the NCAA right now could not be better. I don't know. Gut feeling? 50-50. I'm sorry. I can't give more than that. It would have been, 40-60, 39-61 before today. But after today, and just hearing some of the talks makes it sound like they're not really sure. So I'm going to crank that back up to 50-50. Sorry I can't be better than that. I'm certainly not going to put a magenta out there again. Took a lot of abuse for that. That's all right. It's all fun. Question number 4. Son of Sparty. I think we're only going to go an hour tonight, by the way. I need to clear time for that phone call I'm going to get, I think. Son of Sparty out of Chicago. He says, discuss one player that will exceed summer-fall hype, basketball player, and one player that won't meet our inflated expectations. Talking about his expectations. Who's going to exceed summer-fall hype? Aaron Henry will. Aaron Henry is going to exceed national expectations. Here locally in the East Lansing area, the Michigan State fan community, you know who Aaron Henry is. You know he's got good talent. You know he's going to be pretty good. Well, he's going to be better than pretty good. He's big, he's strong, he's mature, good fundamentals, has really worked on his shot. His shot is going to be really important because a lot of perimeter shots are going to have to be attempted by somebody. With Matt McQuaid being gone, and you don't know when Josh Langford's going to be back. That rock has to go up. Sometimes someone's got to shoot it. In the day and age of the 30-second shot clock, 3 or 4 passes, and that shot's got to go up. Inside out, back around, reverse, ball reversal. Someone's got to shoot it. A lot of times Henry's going to be the guy that takes that shot because he elevates well. He's got a good release. He can make it. It's hard to get out on him because he can go around you, so he's a guy that's going to get some shots. I'm hearing that his 3-point shot is looking good. It looked pretty good in practice a couple of weeks ago. I didn't go to practice last week. Paul Konradek said it looked good that day also, but can he shoot and deliver in that way in games? That remains to be seen. If his perimeter shooter is in fact falling, let's say 37%, the rest of his game is going to be excellent. So that would really make him a terrific all-around player. He's got all that horsepower. That dunk, what game was that when he had that dunk when he got out on the loose? Was that the Duke game? The one where he looked like James Worthy. That was crazy. Aaron Henry's going to have a big year. I've seen some rankings like ranking the top 10 players in the Big Ten, and he would be like 9th or 10th. I think he might be better than that. I think nationally, when they talk ranked national players, you're not seeing Aaron Henry on those ranks in like the top 100. Aaron Henry, I think, is a guy that will exceed the national expectations. But locally, you know what he is, but I think he can be better than that. Locally, I would say, I don't know how many minutes he's going to play, but locally, I think Thomas Kithier can be a good, solid, reliable 12-minute game guy. And depending on late game situations, I could see him being a guy that finishes games. If Michigan State's up 5, he's a guy that can rebound, play some defense, be where he's supposed to be. Rather than, maybe Marcus Bingham. I don't know. But Kithier, even if it's not a ton of minutes, last year at this very time I said, when a lot of people were talking about Marcus Bingham, and I thought Kithier had a better chance to be in the playing group than Bingham. And that turned out to be true. Bingham has the great upside. He's got a nice shot. He's long, he's tall. But at that position, 90% of the game is played with your hands not on the basketball. And Kithier, without the ball in his hands, at both ends of the court, is excellent, solid, reliable. And when you have, last year when you had Ward and Langford for a while, and some others, you didn't need your power forward taking a lot of shots. No, they needed to develop the ability for a stretch four to hit. And we kept an eye on that all year. And Kenny Goings, of course, became that guy. But in the meantime, someone else has to take some of those minutes. Wasn't surprised it was Kithier. I would not be surprised if Kithier's even better this year. Excuse me. Did the VCast today. Did a lot of talking. Losing my voice. Happens sometimes. Usually it happens if I'm talking at the bar with people. And if it's real loud, I'll lose my voice that way. Sorry about this today. Going to have a rain-shortened version today. And it won't be the last time. So who will not meet expectations? Odds are, I hate to say it, but chances are if someone is going to not meet expectations, it's going to be Josh Langford. Whether he comes back and re-injures or it just takes longer for the injury to heal. And he's been a little bit of a slow healer in the past. Watching him out there now, it's coming along slowly. How many minutes can he play? They'll be conservative with him in terms of what he can do as they go along. I'm not predicting that'll be the case, but in terms of for who's most likely to fail to meet expectations, I'm going to say Josh Langford. Again, not predicting that. That would be my first answer on that one. If you have any more questions on over at the YouTube channel, go ahead and drop a line there if you have any questions. As far as football goes, watching that game again against Wisconsin. Usually when I watch a game, it's and Michigan State loses. That's who I analyze for a living at SpartanMag.com. Michigan State. A lot of times when they lose, even in basketball, when I watch it again, the things that led to the loss are usually not as bad or problematic, not as bad as you think they were when you watch them again. This time, things were every bit as bad as I thought, in some cases worse. Because when I watch it live, I'm not able to watch all 11 players. Go back and watch it again, and, you saw what happened, not so good, right? Offense, I'm not surprised that the defense wore down and had trouble getting off the field. For reasons I mentioned at SpartanMag.com, playing the week after the Ohio State game, the defense was just not going to have the dexterity, not going to have the elasticity, not going to be as strong as it was the week before. And it's not a defense with a lot of depth. So the wear down process becomes more pronounced. Defense did not surprise me that they had trouble getting off the field. Offense, you would expect a first down once in a while, right? The thing that I was most concerned about, and you guys probably saw this live when you were watching it, I didn't pick up on it as much Just the game that Brian Lewerke had, 7 out of 16. Brian Lewerke has done well at Michigan State at a lot of checkpoints through his career. As a sophomore, he was excellent, really helped that bounce-back season. Last year, he was injured all year and had some bad games, but showed a lot of heart to get out there. This year, early in the year, had some good games. I thought pretty good really good against Western Michigan, some good moments against Indiana, Northwestern. I thought he was really going to get back to what he was doing as a sophomore and then some. And this game, Brian Lewerke, great guy, great interview. I've really enjoyed working with him over the years. But he really needs the bye week. He needs to snap back because he looked like damaged goods. I hate to say it. Damaged through no fault of his own. Damaged through the fourth quarter of the Ohio State game. And the pass rush and the hits that he took. He was watching Wisconsin on film all week. And they've got an excellent pass rush. And you never know who's coming. They show 6. And usually 4 are coming, but you don't know which of the 6 are coming usually. And he looked unsettled with that, and he had trouble making reads. And I think a lot of those things is what's making Wisconsin's defense so good this year. With some of the zone pressure stuff. I know, Michigan used to do a lot of the zone blitz. Everybody did in the late 90s, and nobody perhaps did it better than Michigan in 1997, although I think that Nebraska would have beaten them if they played. Because that zone blitz pressure man-to-man would not have matched up well with option football the way Nebraska was running it at that time. And I think that was evidence the next year when Donovan McNabb and Syracuse blew them out. I realized that was not the same Michigan defense, but X's and O's wise, they would have ran into some of those same problems. As far as the zone blitz stuff, when you watch shows like NFL Matchup, you see a lot of that. I watch some NFL, but I don't study it. But NFL Matchup, they go over the defenses a lot over the years. Although the people that they have now don't do it as much. But back when it was Jaworski and Merrill Hodge, a lot of showing blitzes on one side and then they drop, and the blitzes are coming from other areas. I watch a lot of college football and I study a lot of Michigan State and Michigan State opponents, and you don't see that, at least on the Michigan State schedule. Wisconsin does that. Jim Leonard, NFL guy, bringing some NFL concepts and getting them done without falling through the ice a whole lot. A lot of times if you're going to do a lot of things like that, you're going to have too much volume in and confuse your guys, and you're not sound somewhere. You don't see soundness problems with them. Although they did have that bust deep Cody White. The corner clouded it. Must have been cover 2. I never got a whole look at the whole 11. Had to have been what it was. That's when Matt Millen was talking about Cody White was wide open. That's when Lewerke shoveled it to Seibert on 3rd and 27 after the fake punt. That play was indicative. He had more time, Lewerke, to stay in the pocket and look a little bit more. Maybe he would have seen that if he had time to see the whole field. And on that play, he did have more time than he thought. That's what I'm getting at. He thinks he has less time than he does because he got hit. The only reason I'm thinking is because he got hit so much against Ohio State. And really, he didn't say this, but you can see he didn't trust his pass protection, and maybe for good reason, especially against the fronts that Wisconsin's bringing. And he was in a panic the whole game. Again, I feel sorry to say that because I've got tremendous respect for him. He needs this time off to get himself straight because I'm telling you what, the second play of the game, remember the second play of the game? 2nd and 12, I think it was. When he threw that blind pass over to the right flat, that one could have been intercepted. I mean, he just for the second play of the game, that was the type of throw you make when it's 4th and ball game and you're down by 10 points and you have to have a play. And there's 10 minutes left, 8 minutes left, or or you're down 7. On that play, they were pressing over here on the short side, and it was off coverage over on the right side with Stewart, and they showed 6, came with 4, and I can't remember. I broke it down. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head now, but anyway, that was more open than this. That side with the off coverage was more open right now. I mean, Jack Cohn would right now delivered it over there. He looked over here, started to get some pressure, and just threw it, and it was up for grabs. Very fortunate they didn't get a pick 6 on the second play of the game. And I think it was Zach Bound, 56, came in and just touched him a little bit. So there wasn't even really pressure. It wasn't even a knockdown for sure. But he was antsy as if it was the continuation of the fourth quarter in Columbus. And that was the second play of the game. And, the next drive, I think Darrell Stewart let one go through his hands, and on third down, over the middle, C.J. Hayes threw it high, incomplete. Even Lewerke's body language, he just kind of smiled it off, doing what he can. I'm not judging. I'm not saying he smiled it like he didn't care, but just his body language was it was not himself. And I don't blame him. I don't think he can trust his receivers to be in the correct place half the time or catch the ball or the pass protection. But it's had an impact on him. And the whole game, he was antsy in the pocket. And then, there was a play, the fourth drive of the game is 3rd and 4. And there was a shallow crosser with Darrell Stewart, and it looked to me like he's open. I don't know what the throwing visual lanes were, but he's open. Catch it at 3 yards, maybe he can get a yard to get 3rd and 4. And Lewerke is antsy and patting it, and finally threw it to Stewart, but not until he crossed all the way over here to the sideline, incomplete. That was the fourth drive of the game. And they only had 4 drives in the first half. Opening drive of the second half. First play, I think they gained 1. It's 2nd and 9. Or the middle linebacker, he's blitzing. Lewerke sees it and fumbles the snap. Remember when he fumbled the shotgun snap? Well, pistol snap. He's fumbled the snap because he was so freaked out about a blitz. I feel bad for him because that's not how he naturally is. What it is the stinkage of the blocking and the receivers. All of that stinkage has now penetrated his armor. Dropping a shotgun snap. And then they faked the punt, and then they had 2 sacks. One was a coverage sack. Looked like Collins was open on a wheel over here, and he didn't see it. I think he was looking for something else. And he said in the post game that there was a mesh route, and that they dropped into it and covered that up. And that was a coverage sack. It was a sack that kind of happened a little bit later. It was a late insertion linebacker, but that was a coverage sack. Could he have gotten rid of it with nothing? He's doing his best. I don't want to be critical of his effort at all, but he's not himself. Also, that Wisconsin defense was good in a lot of ways, but that's a coverage sack. It was an open on a wheel route. Maybe, I don't know if his reads were supposed to take him all the way over there, but D'Antonio said after the game that he was not in rhythm like he normally is. And then the next play, 3rd and 27, after the 12 men in the huddle penalty. Anthony Williams was on the field. He only played 2 snaps the entire game. Why he's on the field? How can that be miscommunicated? And he comes out the field and D'Antonio's barking at him. I don't know how a guy that sits for 68 out of 70 plays, what sign he's getting that he's supposed to be on the field when everyone is telling him he's not. Freshman. I don't mean to rip on him, but that's just one of the many loose ends and quality control problems that they are having. Forget about pass protection being a problem once in a while and dropped passes. What about, they're not trying to drop passes. They're not trying to give up sacks. 12 men in the huddle, lining up incorrectly. They didn't have one of those penalties this time. They've had them in the past. Coverage busts, 4th and 2, Xavier Henderson having a good year. Xavier Henderson and Antoine Simmons both go to the running back. They weren't fooled by the pass. The running back comes out, and they're on him. Problem is they've got 2 on him, if not 2.5. Tight end leaks uncovered. So they were playing the run with 5 D linemen, but you could tell, and I think it was right after, was there a timeout right before that? I can't remember. But they were drilled to look for the pass on that because Wisconsin had thrown on 4th and 2 a deep fade against Michigan. They will do it. So they weren't all in to stop the run. Henderson was looking to stop run, but reacted to the pass. Problem is he and Simmons both went to the running back out of the backfield. I'm guessing that was supposed to be Simmons' guy, and Henderson was supposed to have the tight end. Coverage bust. When Michigan State's playing cover 2, they give up that tight end down to the goal line of the cover 2 hole. The safety's Henderson didn't get over there quickly enough. They and cover 2 one other time, going the other way in the 3rd quarter, picking up a 3rd down in that cover 2 hole. Jack Cohn right on target with that one. Loose ends. Okay, coverage bust. Actually, Henderson's a sophomore, right? Did I call him a freshman? Sorry about that. But the loose ends, of course, missing field goals are part of it. But these other things, and you saw D'Antonio too. I mean, D'Antonio is usually pretty serious on the sideline, but in this game you saw him get down on his knees, or put his hands on his knees and get even more intense about it. Barking at Anthony Williams on that one. Barking at Cody White on the 3rd and 12 play when he catches it at 12 yards. This is late in the game. Rocky Lombardi throws it, catches it at 11 or 12 yards, and goes backwards to try to get the first down, ends up losing 5 yards. Now it's 4th and 6. I think D'Antonio would have preferred just to try to muscle ahead right there and maybe go for it on 4th and a foot. It's not like D'Antonio to yell at a wide receiver about something like that, but he's had it with some of these things. You could see a different level. He's always intense, but a different level of, I'm not going to say panic, but I don't want to say crisis either, but realizing that this team, those screws are still loose. They got to get tightened, and whether it's in-game or whatever, he's bearing down a little more to try to get it done. Didn't get done that day, but he's had it up to here with some of those things, and had it up to here with some things, including things you saw in the post-game press conference, things that have been building, and he fired on 1 or 2 of them. But Lewerke, that was his first drive of the second half on those sacks, the flip to Seibert when Cody White was coming open, not seeing the field. He had time. He kind of vacated a little bit, but not believing that there's going to be anything else downfield, I'm assuming. So flips it here. Cody White was wide open. Also, Cody White doesn't need to be throwing a tantrum out there like an elementary kid when the quarterback doesn't throw him the ball. I mean, Cody White, nobody's having a good year, right? Cody White's not having a good year. He doesn't need to be skipping around like, I'm wide open. Quarterback should have thrown. The quarterback's getting his tail kicked back here, and he's struggling. The last thing he needs is his wide receiver throwing a tantrum like this. I don't know. Maybe just because. Have you guys played with people like that when they throw a tantrum when you don't give them the ball? I don't know, but a little juvenile for my tastes. So, lots of problems there, but Lewerke, is he going to get his crap back together? That's a fair question, and I don't know the answer to that because I've never seen him like that. Now, he'll face a good defense at Penn State, some good defenses down the line. Michigan will have a good defense. He won't face a defense like that again, and I'll be interested to see who's going to solve that defense. Pretty good. So that was the first drive of the second half, fake punt, sack. Second drive of the second half, pick 6. And on that one, it's that zone pressure. Zach Bond, 56, looks like he's going to rush, drops off, pick 6. That's it for Lewerke. Lewerke was only on the field, I think, for 6 drives. He only played for 6 possessions. And Rocky Lombardi played for 4. That's the amazing thing. At the end of the game, Rocky Lombardi had almost as many pass attempts as Lewerke. Lewerke was 7 out of 16. Lombardi was 5 out of 14. Lombardi had some problems with some accuracy, especially throwing to the wide side of the field, but the arm looked pretty good. D'Antonio last year talking about Lombardi said he was throwing with authority. I think you saw Lombardi throw with some authority in this game. At the end of last year, honestly, I was thinking, I don't know if Lombardi's ever going to cut it. I know that's too early to say about a redshirt freshman, but I just wasn't sure what the ceiling of potential was there. I was excited about Peyton Thorne, a little encouraged about Theo Day when I saw him in the previous spring and again this year. I thought maybe there was more ceiling of potential there. But I'm not closing the door on Lombardi. I think he's improved. I watched him in pregame in Madison, and frankly, I thought Theo Day had a better pregame. But Lombardi came out and was sure of himself. The thing that was different about Lombardi is that he stood bravely in the pocket. Why? Because he didn't get the daylights knocked out of him last week in Columbus. You could just see more pocket confidence from Lombardi because he is not yet damaged goods. He's not as good a quarterback as Lewerke, but Lewerke in that worn down state, wow, it was alarming. But Lombardi had some pretty good throws. Lombardi did some things on some of those third down plays. Some of the deep crosser, kind of the dig routes. Cody White had one. I think Darrell Stewart had one. We didn't see the touch from him. That's never been his specialty, but Lombardi had a 19-yarder in there, 5 out of 14 through 1 interception. That was at the goal line. He threw behind his target a couple of times. His very first pass was almost a pick 6, a lot like Lewerke's. But would it have been good to see Theo Day get in there at the very end? Maybe. But the last drive, Lombardi took them down near or into the red zone. So Lombardi can grow from that a little bit. But wow, in terms of what Michigan State needs to get done, a little bit of everything. So let's go back to the questions. We'll stick with football for one here, just a little bit longer. Well, first of all, I want to get a question from MSU Wank. MSU Wank out of Ypsilanti, listening in the car with your daughter Elizabeth. She's got to sit there and listen to all this crap while you drive her around, and she's got to ride with you while you listen to this sorry stuff. Elizabeth, hang in there. You're getting some good tutelage. Probably a good Spartan in the making. Shout out to you guys. MSU Wink wants to know if we can just do an audio version of this. That's probably not going to happen. I'm trying to put everything on YouTube right now and just see how it goes. And he asks, what returning basketball player will we see the biggest increase in performance from? I would say Gabe Brown for the reasons I mentioned earlier, but also for the reasons I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure how many minutes he's going to play. What is, let's see, all right, in terms of football, Fishin' Dave out of Midland, Michigan is asking, which MSU team are we going to see the rest of the season? Back to work and focused, or a beaten down team? That is a fair question and a great question. And I do not know. I think focused and back to work, we always hear coaches talk about, say that players or young people are resilient. I think they'll be resilient. They were all happy to know that they weren't going to have any football until Thursday. They're probably still lifting because you want to retain your strength. But they were beaten down after those two games on the road against great competition. And seriously, they played at Ohio State, at Wisconsin. Now, wait a minute. Give me any team in the country, Clemson, go play Ohio State, and then go play Wisconsin in 38-degree wind chill. See how you do. Anyone in the country, be my guest, who's going to go 2-0 there? Who's going to go 1-1? Maybe Clemson, maybe Alabama. That's it. Nobody's going 2-0. 98% of the country is going 0-2 on those games. 75% of the country is getting blown out both games. Michigan State's in that 75%. And you're going to do worse against Wisconsin because you just played Ohio State. If you are in a physical game that goes all four quarters like Michigan State's did. I know Michigan State was behind by a figure midway through the game, but they played their starters the whole way, and Lewerke took a beating in the fourth quarter. The defense, when those piles were moving against Wisconsin, I talked about this in the VCast at Camp Randall Stadium after the game. Those piles were moving in the second half. You've never seen the Michigan State defense get the pile moved on them like that 3 times in a game. It's because they're worn down. If you're fresh as a daisy, offer more resistance. That was the epitome of getting worn down. Hey, Wisconsin's good. Wisconsin's better than Michigan State. Are they 38 points better? I don't know. I mean, they're pretty good, but that was a tall task. You look at Michigan State's schedule. I mean, they should have beaten Arizona State. We all know that. But most teams in the country would be at least 2 losses on their schedule right now. So, but they are beaten down from that. Their confidence was hurt. You could see the defensive players after the game in Wisconsin. They really had previously thought really highly of themselves. And after they lost to Ohio State, the coaches that showed them the mistakes that had gotten away from them, that allowed that game to get away from them, they could look back on it and say, we could have won that game. They thought they were going to beat Wisconsin. They go out against Wisconsin and just get hammered down like that. Their self-worth took a hit. You could see it. So bye week's going to be good for them. Get back to work Thursday. Young people, resilient, all that's going to be tested. Togetherness, will they have that? That'll be tested, I think so. Defense has to come around first. It's not the deepest bunch. They're having to play a lot of snaps. Now they're playing Penn State. It's going to be another top 10 team. Good team, fast team, not as physical. But in this case, Penn State will be coming off back-to-back games, Iowa and against Michigan. Not quite as taxing as going at Ohio State and then at Wisconsin. But this will be 3 games for them. They've lost to Michigan State the last 2 times. They will be motivated. They are good. And that gets to the question from Joe Sparty from Belmont, Michigan asks, Does Penn State look like the real deal? Can Michigan State hang? Yes, Michigan State can hang, and yes, Penn State does look like the real deal. I thought they were going to blow out, or I thought they were going to beat Iowa handily. I thought by 16, 17 points. I was surprised it was as close as it was. It was close to being a 16-point game, but night game at Kinnick Stadium, those things happen. They covered. I never give gambling advice, but that time, all week I was saying I'll still take Penn State to cover. I think they covered by 1. I think it was a 4-point spread. They won by 5. Penn State's good. Defensive ends are good. Tony, the defensive end, can go. The other defensive end was all Big Ten last year. He can go. The middle linebacker is a big-time Penn State middle linebacker. Big time. He's a legit Big Ten linebacker. Tailback's good. Not as good as the best they've had. Hamler's a difference maker. Quarterback is poised. He's been better than maybe I expected. Third down offense has not been good this year. We'll see what it looks like this weekend. I think they'll beat Michigan with all the white out energy. They might win that game by 3 touchdowns if Michigan continues to have their hiccups and slip-ups. So, yes, Penn State is the real deal. Yes, Michigan State can hang. I would expect them to hang. Could lose. Obviously could lose. But would not be shocked if Michigan State bounces back and plays a good game that day. But got to be worried about Lewerke. I assume after 2 weeks he'll be ready to go again. I'm thinking. So that all goes together. Let's go back to basketball a little bit and finish these up before we get rolling. All right, MSU analyst from Atlanta, Georgia. Do you think this year's team will be better than last year's MSU team? And why or in what areas? Last year's team won the Big Ten tournament and the Big Ten regular season and went to the Final Four. Chances of repeating all those 3, less than 50%. Greater than 50% chance they won't make the Final Four. How's that? Better than last year's team? The pieces are good, not quite all the same. Last year when they went through the NCAA tournament without Langford, without Arns, and Nick Ward barely coming back, they were down to 7 players and just barely holding it together. And they made it through and had some heroic performances and did a great job to get there. But let me tell you something. You got to be lucky, right? We just talked about the Middle Tennessee State game. Aaron Henry got in foul trouble against Texas Tech in the Final Four, and that turned that game upside down. Because now McQuaid has to play like all 20 minutes of the first half or whatever it is, and he was not as effective as he could have been or usually would have been, and missed some open shots in key situations, getting cramps and so forth. You remember that. And Aaron Henry gets in foul trouble, it's a domino effect that messed up the game, that game. They did not have the depth to withstand foul trouble. They were fortunate that it was a slow whistle all tournament, and it was a slow whistle in January, February, March. The whole season was a slow whistle. There have been other seasons that have had quick whistles. Foul, 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 sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down. If it would have been that way last year, Michigan State would have been in serious trouble. If Aaron Henry had gotten in foul trouble. He got in foul trouble against Texas Tech, spun everything out of control. They lost. Not his fault, but I'm saying he gets in foul trouble. If he'd gotten in foul trouble against Bradley, Michigan State would have been one and done. See how that works? I think that's the truth. You may disagree, but that's how close that stuff is from getting away on you. So it's a minefield. Cassius Winston's going to give them a lot of course as a senior. He will be more, I assume he'll be more fresh in March. Tillman's going to come along and do great things. Henry's going to do great things. Got to get the power forward together. Overall, I'm not ready to just automatically say, they're going to be better this year because they got everybody back. Kind of reminds me a little bit of 1990. I know as I wasn't the coach back then. 1991. 1990, number 1 seed, Steve Smith, Sweet 16, lost to Kenny Anderson. And the Sweet 16, great team, number 1 seed. Next year, Steve Smith doesn't go pro, comes back. They've got a lot of talent, but they don't have Kirk Mans and they don't have Ken Redfield. They lose a shooter and a defensive player. What does that sound like? I'm not saying it's going to be the exact same thing, but when you think everything is in line, so often it doesn't turn out to be that way. So that's what I think about that. What do we have about football? Do we have any more football questions? Michigan State Polo from Rockford, Michigan. This is the big one. I had this as the first question. We're an hour in now, so thanks for waiting. Michigan State Polo from Rockford. Michigan State Polo from Rockford. That wouldn't be Polanowski, would it? I don't know. He says He says, I'll ask you a simple question that I think many really want to hear your thoughts on, Jim. Will Mark D'Antonio retire after the season? And if not, and he decides to stay, will he replace most of his offensive staff? Will he retire? Coming into the year, I didn't think so. I think that he was in it for the long haul and was revved up and energetic. And remember, he had that quote where he said that his wife told him, "You're not ready to retire yet," and all that stuff. I think he loves to coach and wants to coach. But now that they've had these problems this year, and also the way the public has responded on him, I think it's a loud minority. People at the Underground Bunker message board at SpartanMag.com, very vocal in their protests, which they've got the right to have those for sure. It's enlightening and maybe not enlightening, I don't know. It's stimulating to get in there and listen to them and go back and forth and hear what they have to say, because they've got valid opinions. A lot of people really railing out against D'Antonio, want him gone. It's what it sounds like. A lot of the posts, like 80% of the posts after the game. But then when we run a poll, it's like 83% people like D'Antonio and want to keep him. So it's 17% that are doing 90% of the loud posts. And those 90% loud posts, maybe not through that vehicle, but from emails and other things, that stuff gets to the coaches. They hear it. They may not want to, but they become aware of it. And that stuff, frankly, that's a big reason why Saban left after 1998. He heard a lot of that crap in 98, and he's got thin skin. He said to himself, next time I get a chance to go, we finally get this thing turned around, I am gone. Now, that had something to do with it, and also some not getting his way with the administration had something to do with it also. But if that hadn't happened in 98, it might have been easier to smooth the other stuff over. But that can make people look elsewhere. Not that he's going to go elsewhere, but it's the first time he's really felt that kind of heat. And would that give him a different viewpoint on things? Gosh, they go 7-5 this year, and everybody's turning on him. All that equity that he said, that he built up in 2016, is that being frittered away? And then you look to next year, and it's a rebuilding year, and you look at that schedule. Does he really want to come back and tackle that? Or is he about ready to say, okay, I think I'm just going to step aside? He's got the big bonus coming in February. Everybody knows that. In August, I would have said, no way. He doesn't want to retire. But now, based on, with the reaction of the fans being no small thing, could that make him reconsider? I'm not going to say no. I do know he's a very private person, and whatever he's thinking, there aren't going to be any other people that know. And the 1 or 2 or 3 people that he confides in, they're not going to tell anybody. So I don't expect any inside information on those things. I do think, I am hearing that that at the administrative level, that there is that they're listening to the athletic department, athletic director, the coaches, about things that the program needs. And Michigan State's been underfunded in some ways in terms of support staff and so forth. I'm hearing that things are in motion to provide more money, more resources in that area. Whether that goes to D'Antonio and his people or whatever, I'm not sure. I'm thinking that means D'Antonio and his people. Maybe that does mean different staff members. I'm not sure. Offensive staff, I said in the .comp article on Sunday, maybe the coordinator who's doing great things at LSU, the New Orleans Saints guy, maybe he would have done more with these guys this year. But I don't care who the offensive coordinator was for the most part or what scheme they're running. They could have ran last year's scheme or this year's scheme. If the blocking is not good and the catchers and the receivers are not catching the ball, and now the quarterback's getting antsy, and you play Ohio State and Wisconsin back-to-back, it was going to be a challenge no matter what you ran. I don't care if Pontius Pilate was the offensive coordinator. And he's a practitioner of the aerial assaults and everything. It was going to be really hard to move the ball against those two. Now, the bad game on offense against Arizona State, yeah, that was ugly. Arizona State did a real good job bleeding the clock. Pretty good defense that day from Arizona State. And Michigan State, screwed it up with, there was a big play down in the red zone with the snag concept where C.J. Hayes didn't quite. No, that was a different game. That was the Northwestern game, I think. I can't remember. I'm getting them mixed up now. But it's just been. It's been a struggle all year in some capacity, whether it be the run blocking or the pass protection. Pass protection statistically was okay prior to the Ohio State game. That was a little bit of fool's gold, but the dropped passes, everybody knows they lead the nation in dropped passes. Is that Lewerke not throwing enough of a catchable ball? I don't know. But replace most of his offensive staff? I'm not sure. Everybody knows that those guys are on one-year contracts. I'm not sure. I don't think he's going to I'll honestly say, if D'Antonio's back, I don't think he's replacing Salem. I don't think that's happening. I think, Bowman's up there in age. I mean, there's been discussions about when he's going to retire. D'Antonio loves him. I wouldn't be surprised if Bowman someday stays on as an analyst. I'm not sure when that would happen, but do I think to answer your question, hopefully those answer your questions, all that stuff's in play. I'm not sure where it's all going to end up. Steven81 from Lansing. We all know what Rocky can do. Will we see Theo Day or Peyton Thorne at all? Good question. I talked about that a little bit, telling you that I thought Rocky Lombardi showed a little bit of progress, I think. A little bit better than I expected. C. Kozel from South Lyon. Have you heard anything on the AD front? How much longer will they keep Beekman? Is there a formal search for this yet? There's no formal search. Beekman is making $800,000 a year. I don't think he's regarded as an interim right now. He was hired as AD with the blessing of Izzo and D'Antonio, and as long as those things are solvent, the ship's just going to keep right like that. The football thing going as it is, that would be an interesting question. I was having a discussion with another member of the media today, and he was talking about, we were talking, well, what if D'Antonio did decide to retire after the season? Then who heads up the search? I'm assuming Stanley, he's the president, he would put it in motion. Does he go with Beekman or an outside firm? What I would suggest is if D'Antonio did want to step down, you talk to D'Antonio and you talk to Izzo. You keep Izzo involved. Izzo was very much involved when they hired D'Antonio. You keep Izzo in the loop. He was not in the loop when they hired John L. Smith. But Stanley would be the guy who would have to come from him down. Would he just hand it off to Beekman? That'd be a really good question, and I don't know the answer. I've not met Stanley yet, and I'd like to talk to him a little bit. I'm sure a lot of people would. Let's check the questions on YouTube and sign this one off. What do we have here? Brian V. from Flushing, Michigan. The orange and black. How's Marcus Bingham coming along? Seeing drastic improvement? Putting that weight on at a decent rate? Can he contribute meaningful minutes this season? Great question. I was hoping they were going to have practice today. Usually after media day, they have practice and we watch it. Today, no practice. They've been going like 2 days on, 1 day off. 2 days on, 1 day off. Izzo curtailing practice because the practice season by NCAA terms was allowed earlier this year in relation to the beginning of the game than in any time in the Izzo era, 25 years. Back in the old Heathcote days, you would have 6 weeks of preseason practice, but the season wouldn't start until, late November, right? Now it's starting early November, and practice season started earlier. And Michigan State just played until April, and Cassius Winston wore his legs out in April. Izzo gave him 4 weeks off. Today he said 6 weeks, but that's Izzo math. Winston said it was 4 weeks, a couple of weeks ago. So 4 weeks off. Then next thing you know, it's May 10th. Bringing Winston back. Winston did not play Moneyball. Brought him along slowly. Had a little hamstring injury. Some guys need to play more, like the freshmen and so forth. But Izzo really wants to pace them. You can tell he's been around the block a few times. He's been deep into March a few times and into April. He wants to get to April with tread on the tires. So they're not practicing as much as some teams. I'd be interested to know how much Kentucky is practicing right now and what impact that might have on the first game. It's a good question, but Izzo wants to be good in March. That's his specialty. So I was hoping to watch practice today. When I saw Bingham 3 weeks ago, he was okay. I was looking to see if he got bumped around in the post more. He still looks skinny, but he's not the string bean he used to be. Shoots it. People know that he's got a good shot release. When I saw him, he didn't shoot all that great, but Paul Konerdijk saw practice last week and was really impressed with Bingham, and he's all about Bingham being that stretch four. And he can shoot. But like I said, 90% of the game is played without the ball in your hands. How good is he without the ball in his hands? Ball screen defense, bodying up on the block, moving his feet laterally, passing the ball, those things. I've not seen enough to get a good grasp on that yet. I'll be going to practice hopefully maybe next week, hopefully later this week. So drastic improvement, you ask? I don't know if I'd say drastic improvement. Putting weight on at a decent rate, Izzo says he is. And talking to Aaron Henry today, Aaron Henry's his roommate, and he says it almost seems unhealthy how much Marcus Bingham is eating. He's just putting in calories. So he's trying to get there. Meaningful minutes? Yeah, I think he plays meaningful minutes, at least 9 minutes a game. Usually there's like that 11th man, like the fourth big man that gets 9 minutes a game. I think he'll at least be that. But if he gets banged around too much and that becomes a problem, could someone like Julius Marble take those minutes because he might be tougher on the block? It's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of candidates, and I've seen practice. You guys haven't, but like Izzo said today, there's not a lot of separation there. There's not a lot of people like just rising up and just taking that job. So I'll be very eager to go to practice next time to take a look at some of those things, and I'll check back with you. Old Tuck says, is the average age of D'Antonio's staff on par with most other Power 5 programs? Is Bowman a modern-day Troy Hickman? Troy Hickman, great one. I remember Troy Hickman. He was like the equipment guy back in the early 90s for a long time, dating all the way back to, he was there when Levi Jackson did his thing in 1974. Hickman like passed out or something after the Levi Jackson thing. And in the tunnel, like players were on their knees praying and stuff because everybody thought Hickman had a heart attack. That was going on when all the other stuff was going on. Crazy game. I was not there in 74, but I just recently watched the video that, what's his name, Andy H? I should know his name. The guy that puts up all the great compilation old-time Michigan State videos. I watched that whole fourth quarter. Boy, that's a trip. Go on YouTube and find that one. As a matter of fact, I was 6 years old then, and that's probably my earliest Michigan State sports memory. And I didn't see the game, but I remember it being replayed maybe like in the subsequent weeks, like the week after they replayed it, or maybe on the 6 o'clock news. Levi Jackson, because the Detroit Lions had a guy named Levi Johnson at the same time. And I thought it was the same dude. I was 6 years old. I didn't know. But Levi Jackson, that was my earliest Michigan State memory. But Hickman, I remember talking to Hickman back in 1993 when Michigan State was going to play Wisconsin in the Coca-Cola Bowl in Tokyo, Japan. That was Wisconsin's first big breakthrough year. They went from nothing to great in 1993, and Barry Alvarez went to the Rose Bowl and won the Rose Bowl that year, I think. Brent Moss, Terrell Fletcher, Darrell Beville. Really good team, muscular team, physical team, inside zone, outside zone, stretch. They're getting ready to go to Japan, and we're hanging around watching practice. Back then, we could go to practice for, even, in the middle of the season, you could go to practice. And Troy Hickman was on the sideline. He'd always make sure, back up, get off the line. Get on one knee. Anyone was sitting down on the line, yeah, get on one knee or stand up. Hickman comes around, says, man, going to Tokyo. Someone was asking about it. He's like, nothing like going to Tokyo. He said, nothing like 15-hour flight. Nothing like being scared for 15 straight hours. That's my Troy Hickman story. Old Tuck, you asked for it. We're late in the show now, so this won't get to late show material. What else was he talking about? Average age of D'Antonio's staff, is it on par? It's got to be older than most staffs. The head coach is up there in age, doing a great job. He's the envy of a lot of coaches around the country that would love to stay in a job that long. But Bowman is up there in age. Treadwell's up there in age. Remember when Treadwell was young? He was a young coach when Bobby Williams hired him. The rest of them, Tressel's average, Samuel's average. I don't know. It's probably a little bit older than most. And that's probably going to happen when you're in year 13 and you've had the continuity like D'Antonio likes. But you're right. And does that have an impact on recruiting? Probably so. I mean, Penn State had some old staffs that still recruited really well, but that was Paterno, that was Penn State. Different? Maybe so. Let's go here. Almost done. J. Carr, 1978 iffy from Atlanta, Georgia. Why would you recruit Hogard when you have Terry? I don't care about rankings, but Terry in the open court brings another element. You're right. Jalen Terry, big timer. Michigan State thought that they had both of them and it was going to be fine and there wouldn't be a problem. I'm going to look into it to see if that was part of the problem. We talked about it. We talked about it in the VCast today. Go to SpartanMag.com to watch that. And I know other people think that the Hogard commitment was the push that caused the apple cart to come apart. Did they know the apple cart was fragile with Terry? I don't know. When you get a commitment, they continue to babysit that thing. But knowing what they know now, would they have taken Hogard? Boy, that's a good question. That's a good question. They liked Hogard, but that's a good question. Terry was the jewel of that class, and it hurts. All right, it hurts them that they don't have him now. Todd H., should we make a change at quarterback? That's totally Steve. I don't know what that means. A change at quarterback. I'll tell you what, Todd. I love Lewerke. I've said that 10 times, and I believe in him. But if he's still a little shell-shocked and antsy, if he's like that from the beginning of the Penn State game, I would not be shocked if they come to the decision that, Lewerke is the same he was at Camp Randall. We need to make a change. It would not shock me after one series of the third quarter if that happens. I don't predict that's going to happen. I'm saying if Lewerke struggles like that, just his pocket presence was not as confident as Lombardi. I think Lombardi's more error prone, but his accuracy issues and so forth. But you cannot have your quarterback with happy feet like that. I hate to call it like that, but that's what it was. And Lewerke's got the ability to make a great comeback from this and do some great things down the stretch. They can beat Penn State. They can beat Michigan. They can go 8-4 and turn all this around. They've got the ability to do it. They got to stay together and get confident. They really had their confidence shaken. The Penn State game, of course, is going to show a lot. The defense has to get out there in a fresh situation, not having been worn down. I think they can play a good game for sure. Got to stay away from those breakdowns. They've had those coverage busts. Every game they've had one. They obviously have to take it up a notch. And then on offense, you need Lewerke to play like he can play. And the receivers to catch the ball and not have drive-stopping penalties, obviously. And we'll be talking about that next week when Michigan State plays Penn State. Appreciate everybody checking us out, coming in for the Spartan Mag Live. Tell your friends about it. Tell your enemies about it. And hope everybody had a good night. And we expect to be back next Monday night to get ready to look at that Michigan State-Penn State game and also talk about whatever the latest is with Michigan State basketball as that season draws near. So, once again, thanks for joining. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher of SpartanMag.com. We'll see you next time on the Spartan Mag Live.